Folks, welcome back to the Meditation Cave. This is going to be part two of Stephen Sakellarios, Mathew Franklin Whittier reincarnated. We shall be introducing Abby Poyen, who is going to give us many, many clues as to how these lives are linked. So, without further ado, I'm going to go to the charts here. And I'll be linking below to a good video so you can catch up on the case. Stephen, like I said, has published a short work in paperback that you can get through Amazon called Reincarnation Can Be Proven, and about 2,000 pages on ebook to back up this case. It is incredibly exhaustively researched. And I re-listened to the Aeon Byte interview from November of 2019, which is where I first heard Stephen's story, and have been brushing up on the case, and I'm very excited to show you what I've got. So I'm going to be bringing in the narrative as I show. Oh, God. I love making Patreon videos now because I'm not nervous. YouTube makes me nervous. I'll get over that one day. So, screen share. There it is. Okay, we're rolling. Nice. So, for just a bit of a review, this is the chart of Stephen Sakellarios. And pay attention to the chart in the middle. Every chart's going to be a synastry chart. I'm just going to keep something on the outside. So, I recently got a book by Michael DeBaker where he has published 6 cases and applied evolutionary astrology principles to proven reincarnation cases. Christian Haupt, who is a child, and he's not a child anymore. He's a freshman in high school, and he has distinct memories of being Lou Gehrig, and the James Leininger case, Jeffrey Keane case. There's 6 total. And because these are published with all the personal data out there, I now kind of have a license to make astrological video of each of them. And I think I'm going to do that. One of the things that I noticed about this book, I was expecting to get a book where there's going to be synastry charts and times of death and all this stuff, those things that I'm doing. In no way, shape, or form was this book that. The book was simply the person in question's chart, and then he does this, looks at the south node, looks at the ruler of the south node, and does a very, very, very basic storytelling method where he derives interpretation from this and says it does. I mean, it to him it proves evolutionary astrology. Evolutionary astrology is something I've been heavily influenced by. One of the first astrology books I got was Jeffrey Wolf Green's Pluto book, which founded it. What I'm doing here and showing the synastry charts is going to allow us to apply statistical probabilities, how certain exact conjunctions, certain alignments, multiple of them, the more you have, the more statistically improbable it is that it's by chance. And these cases have so many, it's literally off the charts. It can't be random. So that level comes in, and then this time I'm going to start to bring in interpretation to show how these charts do point to the life lived before. And then there's our friends and our parents and the people. Well, partners and parents are the most important karmic charts, and I swear you could prove astrology just by taking a parent's chart and a child's chart and looking at what that transit was for the parent. And there's no way that it could be random how many conjunctions there are, how many exact alignments there are. If these new AI bots could ever do anything really useful, a statistical analysis on that, I think would prove that astrology is not random. Hands down. That would settle it. So I'm inspired. I'm all charged up. I got some ninth house energy. We're going to talk about the ninth house. The ninth house is higher ideals. In fact, the most idealistic chart house there is. So let's look at this. We have Stephen Sakellarios, accurate birth time, Mathew Franklin Whittier. I am very proud of my rectification of his birth time, and I trust it. I'm get a Virgo ascendant, and Virgo keeps showing up. Virgo is critical analysis, lots of details, critical in the wanting to improve things, but not afraid of pointing out errors, and then analysis to improve. It's really, you want a car mechanic to have lots of Virgo and brain surgeons, and if you want to improve something, get Virgo energy. So let's do a brief overview of Stephen's chart. Now, the most important thing that I see is that the ascendant is in Scorpio. There's lots of Scorpio happening and lots of Virgo happening. So we've got Saturn exactly on the ascendant, and then Mars in the ascendant as well. This is okay. We're gonna do interpretations. This is a tricky one. This points to trauma. Honestly, it manifests difficulty in childhood in this life, and it's always reflected karmically. Um, I'm getting into this other level that I'm so happy about. How these planets are really they're they're way showers. They're pointing us to, rather than just an interpretation of persona. I'm dabbling in here. I don't want to be violating privacy, but this is I have a license to show what I'm seeing. This is huge. The other thing that's pointing to shock, sudden upset, or what amounts to trauma. This is what causes samskars in the energy body, which carry over lifetime to lifetime and are really, really imprinted in the charts. Is Uranus on the south node. Now, Uranus on the south node also to me is pointing that in the past life, this person was a radical. If you want to, I 7 out of 10 punk rockers have Uranus Sun conversions, and if you talk to them, they're very radical. The anarchists and any um, abolitionist would be a proper word. So you were a radical in a past life if you have Uranus on the south node. Okay, that's established. Now, outside, we see the chart of Mathew Franklin Whittier. Was he radical? Oh, yeah, he was an abolitionist. And in fact, one of the interesting things in his chart that I'm seeing is his north node, Mercury, which points to writing, and Venus, which is the arts in general. So Venus is finished, completed art, and Mercury is always the act of making art. We will notice that Stephen Sakellarios also has Mercury Venus conjunction. Not a surprise. Now, it's not showing this because this is a synastry chart. But there's a perfect sixth house Virgo, uh, 21 degrees, 24 degrees, 21 degrees, 24 degrees. This is a perfect inconjunct, which is highly tuned into the south node, and we're seeing the north node, which is where Mathew Franklin Whittier was moving towards what he wanted to learn in life. So, yeah, to be a writer and to have some sort of a finished product. Now, what's interesting in the life of Matthew Franklin Whittier, he's not known for having published works because he was an abolitionist and had to do things incognito. And what house do these fall in? It's the 12th house, the house of hidden things. So as we read Matthew Franklin Whittier's chart, we realize that he has the sun and he has Mars conjunct. Mars in the sun will make you ideological, strongly ideological. Mars in Jupiter will make you idealistic. There's a difference between idealism and ideology. But if you combine the two of them, you get somebody who would be pretty dogmatic about their very high ideals. And high ideals, this, I mean, when I say that, I hear ninth house. That is ninth house. It's mostly idealism. It's the higher purpose. It's something bigger, part of something larger than yourself. So, in a very hidden way, 12th house, you have someone who wanted to be part of something larger than themselves and acted to do so, as we know biographically. Now, the 11th house is going to be important. The 11th house is a house of praise, awards received, it's recognition. It's really, I'm going to say, the biggest ego stroke comes from the 11th house. Now, in a lot of ways, we see that this is going to be thwarted. It's not actually going to be able to manifest. That's how he felt. Matthew Franklin Whittier was concerned about the network, about peers. Um, and when we read into this, there's going to be more than just the idealism, right? He really did want recognition, but he was not going to get it with um, with the 12th house like this. This Mercury in the 12th house rules the whole chart. So the big theme of his life would have been writing and creating. And he did. We find out that he wrote under pseudonyms. And that nothing says writing under a pseudonym like your chart ruler being Mercury in the 12th house. So this is an accurate assessment. Now, I'm going to jump back and forth between these charts because what we see here when we want to do a, I'm going to say Michael Baker style evolutionary astrology past life read, he's going to say, look, um, this south node is nine in the ninth house. It's 10 degrees away from the ninth house cusp by my method, so it's a very much pointing to a past life persona. The real essence was that ninth house. It was the higher ideals. So Matthew Franklin Whittier sacrificed a career where he probably could have been a writer with recognition, but he hid that away for a higher ideal. And that is the energy that carries over into the life of Stephen Sakellarios. You see a radical who had very high ideals. And Cancer is also the most private house. So there were past life things were very private. Um, we'll see in the when Abby's chart shows up, there is a very strong Mars and Cancer theme. So we need to see here that Mars and Cancer all established now. Mars is opposite of its exaltation, so it's in its fall. Um, the Mars doesn't want to be in Cancer because wants to be. Mars is the planet that allows us to assert ourselves and have boundaries and do what we need to do in the face of anything that stands in our way. When you have Mars in Cancer, you have social situation, you have usually a family domestic situation where if you assert yourself, you are going to step on toes and you can't do it gracefully. You end up in this the energy is a civil war. So anything you do to try to be who you're supposed to be, you will come into conflict with usually members of your own family first and foremost. Um, the closer these people are to you, the more inevitable that you will come into conflict. So this theme is really shown. Now, as I said in the first video, the fact that the south node is right, making a conjunction with these personal planets of Matthew Franklin Whittier it's kind of a smoking gun if you ever wanted one for this person being the same person in the past life. I think I said this is the almost stereotype of exactly what you'd want to see. You don't see it every time, of course. Now, the other key point, and I'm repeating, is that the in Saturn is going to be important because it shows up in Abby's chart, of course. To be born on the day that is the same degree that Saturn was in a previous life in Saturn is really important. Now, where do we see Saturn? Exactly on the ascendant here. And here's that Mars. And Mars was so important in Matthew Franklin Whittier's chart and very important. It almost defined the relationship that he had with Abbey. And so both of these end up on the ascendant in the house of the body. In Scorpio, Mars is very happy in Scorpio. Saturn is not happy in Scorpio. Um, but these become the dominant planets, the two malefics in Scorpio. Scorpio, this is also going to make any person, and I can speak from experience, I have 3 planets in Scorpio, some of the most obsessed people you'll ever meet. Like, I'm pretty obsessed with the things that I'm into. I don't stop. I it's my life. I live it, breathe it. You should talk to my mom sometime. And I was like that when I was a kid. Now, one thing I know about Steven is that he is into proving this life. He is, I will use the word obsessed. I use it as a compliment. Um, so obsessed about what? It points directly to uh, this previous life. And you could almost say that if you put this much time and energy into making a case, getting documentation, digging, like a journalist that will dig and dig and dig for 100 hours to find some detail to prove a case or something, that journalist is a good journalist and they've got some planets in Scorpio. So we see a person who's living a life that is absolutely devoted to making this point. There's just some seriously undone things that need to happen. And so the other thing we're going to look, okay, interpretation, the North Node. So anything on the North Node is really something that any person needs to move towards and face. And it's always fraught with anxiety. It is something that you'll be absolutely drawn to. Another level of obsession comes from Rahu, North Node. And so the closest planet is this Chiron. Chiron is so important in these cases. Chiron is the wound. Interpreted as the wounded healer. If you can get to this wound and have some shamanic experience where you become a wounded healer, that's what it's all about. So it's not just a fruitless obsession with the past. It's the need to get to the medicine in this process. And so anybody with Chiron on the North Node is definitely here to face trauma and face a wound. Michael DeBaker has a book on Chiron. And very soon I'm going to have a big old library, and I can tell. So the other thing, Sun on the North Node. This is important. Anytime the Sun is on the North Node, you are something. and you have doubts about it. You're it's such an interesting thing because the person will feel like there's something important, but then there'll be this like self-doubt about it, and there becomes a defensiveness over it. But I've seen this a few times, and in the worst situation, you have somebody that has a little man complex. And this is not happening in this chart because it's in, there's other things that are thwarting that. So, um, but the little man complex comes from actually being something, and it's so profound and almost otherworldly that you have self-doubt about it. And so it's the self-doubt that causes people to compensate in different ways. Now, honestly, I've seen this in the charts of highly enlightened gurus. Who comes to mind? Lahiri Mahasaya, Sri Yukteswar, the Yogananda lineage, um, sun on the North Node. And really, what was it like to be a child and living that life? They didn't grow up knowing that they were highly advanced souls. Maybe they had an inclination, but at some point you have to realize you really are that. So everybody who lives this life, they're gonna have some level of self doubt, and then at some point they're gonna realize, oh, it really is me. I'm him. It's called that Lakers from last year. That was great. So the fact that this sun is exactly on the Saturn, um, what are the odds? There simply are no odds. And again, this moon being connected with Uranus, I won't repeat the last video, but it really shows a persona who's going to, okay, let me blank out for a second and just say it. Like this person really is something. This person is going to have doubts about that, but you're going to be driven to get past those doubts. And given free will, it can go any which way. You can, I mean, I'm now imagining some of the charts I know of the people that have this, and it's not gone so well. But with the right level of devotion and I'm going to say obsessiveness, you can prove this, and I think that typifies um, why why the obsession, because it's true. It's that simple. I already am strongly of the opinion that this chart reflects the outer chart, um, and okay, so we need to go to the ruler. I'm following this. So here's this 11th house moon ruling. So South Node is in Cancer, so it's ruled by the moon. The moon goes over to Virgo in the 11th house. We're going to see more Virgo moon. I mean, Abby had her moon Virgo, as we're about to see. And then that 11th house of wanting recognition. And anytime that the moon is in the 11th house, you want recognition. That's it. Do you get recognition? Some people do. Some people don't. There's other factors involved. The other real thing that can happen is that people with the 11th house moon tend not to be on equal footing with their peers. They tend to, people tend to look up to them. Uh, yeah, that's what frequently happens. But you feel isolated because you don't have this mutual respect. The people that do pay attention to you, they want to learn from you. You become a resource for them, and so that can feel isolating, lonely in some ways because when people are paid attention to you, it's not a two-way street. It can be a one-way street. You're giving more than you get. This is just basic run of the mill 11th house moon interpretation. So um, I think this moon is reflecting that 11th house experience over here. And moon being in Virgo, it needed to be in Virgo because it's showing these soul relationships. So, okay, this is probably going to be a slightly longer video, and that is okay because we're going all the way, doing this right. Now, I'm going to, so here we'll continue to look at Stephen's chart, and on the outside is the chart of Abby Poyen. Abby Poyen was married to Mathew Franklin Whittier for 5 years, and then she died. The way I read this is that there was an incredibly high level of grief for Mathew after that occurred. The biographical information that I do know is that Mathew he was a Quaker and not a well-off person, and Abby came from a more well-off family and was cultured. And this was there was this she was part of a world. Where am I getting this from? I'm just gonna say it. Like, she represented to him something that was really transcendent, like her connection to the stars, her connection to, oh, I get Greece and Orpheus, and there's just these deeper, 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 deeper. I'm gonna be able to show that obviously this was not the first life these two souls lived together, and this was not the first trauma of separation they had experienced. So there's a repeating karmic pattern of wanting to connect as part of something just transcendent and this world and its density thwarting it almost every time. Now, we're going to go back to what are the odds? What are the odds? What are the odds? Remember how I talked about Mars and Mars being in Cancer? So Mathew had Mars in Cancer. Abby had Mars in Cancer. Now, why don't I even jump to that? I can't. Do I have it? Yeah. Oh no. I think I have 5 charts. I need. Yeah, this was really important. Okay. Yeah. So let's start out by looking at the relationship between Mathew and Abby. Here we have 2 Marses in Cancer. This means when I stopped watching a video because I had already said, oh, okay. So when they got together, their families didn't approve. And then was watching a video today, and I think Stephen said that he intuited this. Very good intuition. When they got together, it caused a civil war in their families. Neither of the families approved. Um, and oh, so I know so many people with Mars and Cancer, and to have 2 people, I've never. It's the first time I've seen that. It's like, ooh, that's trouble. So this is a relationship that would not have been approved at all. Um, and let's just start to look at this synastry. I just threw these charts together today, and interesting, 26 degrees of Taurus. Now, I am really confident about this rectification and was really confident about this rectification as well. And lo and behold, we get Venus being on Mathew's midheaven. So anything that's on your midheaven is kind of your raison d'etre. And Venus at home in domicile on, I mean, so any guy who meets a girl with Venus in domicile on his midheaven, look out. She's going to become everything to him, like literally everything. So that is fortunate. This is not. So you have the girl of your dreams who, if you hook up with this person, it's going to be nothing but trouble for your families. Now, an interesting thing that I must point out is how many similarities in Abby's chart compared to Stephen's chart in this life. Stephen, I believe, through empathy, has taken on so many of the facets of what Abby was experiencing. How do I know that? Well, she had Saturn on the ascendant. She dies with Mars on the ascendant. And then there's Saturn and Mars in Stephen Sakellarios' chart. Now, Abby, remember what I said about the sun in the north node? Abby had the sun in the north node, which means that she had some sort of self doubt, but she really was something profound. We're going to look at this in Gemini. I believe that she had an ability to communicate between the worlds pretty well. And this was something that she didn't have confidence in. But I don't know about her life. Hopefully, I think she tuned into that. The fact that Mathew Franklin Whittier was a skeptic of such things. She represented this like portal, this gateway for him to some deep soul memory that he eventually got to, because after she passes, he becomes a spiritualist and maybe even believes in astrology. This is what I do know about his biography. So she was able to be this person enough to keep him going in that life. Um, what have we got? What have we got? She's got her south node with these two outer planets, Neptune and Uranus, and it's right in like Mula. You don't see Mula because that's a nakshatra, but this is where the galactic center is. So she really is a soul with a Virgo moon, just like Stephen Sakellarios. Really is a soul who had a difficult enough life. Saturn on the ascendant is just going to be difficulties. And here we see Mathew Franklin Whittier's south node right next to Chiron again. So Chiron on the south node in Mathew's chart, Chiron on the north node in Stephen's chart. This is more than one lifetime. There is a lifetime before. This was a meeting of soulmates, and honestly, something deeper and traumatic had happened. And there's been multiple lifetimes to face this. I don't know what it is. There's probably ways to find out. We're opening the doorway here. But there's definitely the trauma keys all show up. There's some tragedy. There's some deep tragedy that is taking lifetimes to work out, and it's romantic tragedy. The soul will keep coming back for that. That's what words is good for. Holy cow. Okay, so what I want to point out, it's the same chart. Here's Abby's chart on the outside of Stephen's chart. So what are the odds that this Mars, so Mars in our narrative means that in that life, this relationship led to conflict amongst the families, which ultimately could have led to her downfall. Like there's a good chance that the energy, this might have been a soul contract, this might have been written in the stars and everything, but the way it played out was the difficulty in the relationship might have actually made her sick. Like that heartache could have been the catalyst that ended up she couldn't live the life. It was too much. Wasn't going to happen, and then so she exited. And in fact, the fact that that Mars is exactly on the south node of Sakellarios, what are the odds? And her Venus being exactly conjunct Mathew Franklin Whittier's, and we're going to see in the chart where she dies. The moon is exactly on making a conjunction. So let me see if I am missing anything here. There's so much, so much, so much. But we just want the good stuff, so that's what we're gonna find. Okay, so I'm gonna jump to the next chart and see what jumps out at me. Yeah, here it is. So here is the moment of Abby's passing, and I feel incredibly confident. Again, I don't usually actually feel as confident. I'm always not saying stuff because I doubt my rectifications or I won't even set them. But man, these ones are just strong. I do believe I'm getting some assistance from the team of light this time around. So, what you don't see here is that Venus in Abby's natal chart being on the midheaven. Well, she passes, I believe it was 9. I believe it was earlier than midnight. I feel like she had, yeah, because it's March. Um, Anyway, nonetheless, over the course of a handful of hours during that evening, the moon crossed at midheaven. So when I set this, I got 917 really strong, and then I look at the chart and it's exactly on the midheaven, exactly conjunct her own Venus. Yeah. So the moon transits her Venus when she passes. Not a surprise. In fact, Venus is again here in domicile. And I will say it again and again and again. Venus is always associated with death. Venus is some sort of, you know, I don't know how it works, but someday I will write that essay of how Venus is a death card. Okay, this is number one. If anybody wanted to debate a birth time for me and say no, the midheaven's not there, that's fine. Because let's see that Abby's death was the exact Saturn return for Mathew. So Saturn in okay. So this degree, these two planets being exact, Stephen Sakellarios is born the day that the sun is in this degree. So the smoking guns are piling up. Oh, remember I was just talking about Venus? So the transiting south node is in the exact degree of Mathew Franklin Whittier's Venus. The day that Abby dies. And look, here's Mars on the ascendant. So she has Saturn on the ascendant in birth, Mars on the ascendant in death. Stephen Sakellarios is born with Saturn and Mars on the ascendant. I feel empathy and kind of taking some of these cosmic energies and putting it into his chart at the soul level. So he's born with so much of these narratives. Um, Same doing the interpretation thing. It's kind of fun to do that. And the other thing is that Neptune, which is on, Abby's got Neptune on the south node. Nonetheless, Neptune is exactly conjunct the north node. There's something I'm missing. I think it's actually Mathew's death. Oh no, it's in the first video. I'll go look it up. So we have not only the south node conjuncting that Venus. This Venus is the it's the thing. It's retrograde. So retrograde energy. Um, Venus wants to manifest the physical world, but when it's retrograde, I think it was Mashallah who said that a retrograde planet is it's spiritualizing the energy. So rather than making the mundane, it's going to the spiritual. So if the planet can't work as a good karaka to manifest, it unmanifests, but it spiritualizes. So you have less, like a monk has less, but has a greater spiritual life. Retrograde planets kind of make a monk. You haven't got a yacht or $1 million, you could have a really profound spiritual experience, but the world doesn't manifest in a mundane way. So that's kind of the nature of why this chart for Mathew Franklin Whittier, ruled by Mercury, which would cause him to be a writer. Saturn in the fifth, that'll help you be a writer too. Any planet activating the fifth house, but also Saturn, which will delay and suppress. So we always look to the fifth, the third. Oh, look, the moon, Uranus. Is this guy a writer? Yeah, you better believe it. So he wrote. And did he get anywhere with his writing? No, it was all hidden in the 12th house. And in fact, when the planet, this outer planet, which kind of, more than kind of, Neptune really dissolves things and makes them intangible. It's like, uh, you want to do something really good, but you're a little too drunk to do it. That's what Neptune can bring the energy in. It'll also connect you with the deep spiritual stuff as well. It's one of those weird outer planets. It blurs this reality and connects you to something bigger, but it can make this reality a bit bigger. And let's look at the degree, because I do believe, yeah, it's 16, and that moon is 16. So this is Abby's death, where we have Neptune exactly conjunct the nodes, exactly, making this, and then it's a perfect T square to that moon in Mathew Franklin Whittier's chart, which also points to Uranus, which shows up on Stephen Sakellarios' south node. So this entire story is being hacked into that Cancer south node in the Sakellarios chart. Right. How you all doing? So this is the point in the reading where I have to stop talking and check in. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. So let's just tune into Abby. Hi, Abby. How's it going on the other side? So here we see this is a death transit. Venus and the moon. So the moon crosses this Venus when she passes. Interestingly, midheaven is exactly conjunct the ascendant. So 4th and 10th, 7th and 8th. This actually makes me feel really good about the rectifications. You'll see the angles making conjunctions. In fact, I got the right birthplace for Christian Haupt and his mother, Kathy Bird. I will do a video on this, but he was Lou Gehrig and she was Lou Gehrig's mom. They're doing the mom-son thing again, twice. You get more than one chance at this thing in life, right? And they have their descendants exactly opposite. So first house cusp conjunct 7th house cusp in the exact same degree. Two highly accurate birth times. So the too good to be true. How did this conjunction happen? No, rely on such things. Like you can rectify charts, and when you see these things line up perfectly, you should know that this is the way it works. When we have cases where we can really truly verify stuff, it's too good to be true. But it is true because that's how it works, right? We think if everything's random, no, it'd be too good to be true. But nope, that's how it lines up. So here is this, and there wasn't too much other than, yeah, this was time to go. And yeah, so we're on to the relationship between, yeah, okay. So we've gone through all the charts, haven't we? Have I made my point? I think I have made my point. Oh yeah, this south node in Mathew's chart going to that Mars. That's what I wanted. And so when the south node of Stephen Sakellarios is on this degree, you have that ever so important 144-degree angle. And so this is the relationship between Mathew and Abbey. And Stephen and Abbey have the exact same angle at 144. 144 is the fifth harmonic, Pythagoras. Remember, Pythagoreans, they would have the pentangle on their hand as their secret symbol. I swear to you. And they believed in, they knew about reincarnation. And again, especially if you look at yogi lineages or the, karmapas and all this stuff, they're just loaded with the 144 and 72. So to me, I always say, if you want to confirm reincarnation and soul group, you want a handful of them. And I do see them all the time. And they don't show up in charts in general. They just don't. Incredibly rare. I use 40 reduced orbs. These things only show up if they're really specific. So this is I think I would like to make a well-made public video of this case. So this is a Patreon video, and I want to show everything I have here. I'm probably going to talk to Stephen, and I think we were waiting to discuss more before until I did this. I am in correspondence with Stephen Sakellarios. I'm beginning to consider him a friend. So I need to get this out of the way so we can get on with just being friends. And I'm sure other things will come to light. And yeah, so here it is. Now we go back to this original thing. Can you see it? Here's the south node showing the past life. Here it is. Now we see Abby's Mars. We see this whole story woven in. We see even Pluto here in Leo, and it was that, hidden rider that represents Leo. The moon right next to that ascendant. It's just boom, 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 boom. I think this is a clear cut case, and I'll link. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And here's again, like I said, that 144. It's a Chiron. And in this instance, Chiron represents that wound. And okay, wound, trauma, key. This is also when you have a conjunction like this, Chiron in Mathew's chart, he was bringing the same wound into the life of Mathew Franklin Whittier, and there's this creative relationship with the life of Stephen Sakellarios, where it's um yeah, this is the Samskara. This is the key, this is the pattern, this is that energy body uh bringing one narrative from one body to the next. So to me this is clear as day. If you I want some closing comments. People don't know who the heck Mathew Franklin Whittier is, and most people don't care. Why does Stephen Sakellarios care so much? If you were going to just needed attention and wanted to prove that you were some person, pick a famous person. Pick pick somebody that somebody cares about. Pick somebody, if you really were Lou Gehrig, if you really weren't Lou Gehrig and you wanted to prove that you were, you could probably get yourself on the Today Show, right? Like if we had the best technology where we could prove reincarnation cases, proving that you're Mathew Franklin Whittier will not get you onto the Today Show. No one cares, right? And that's the thing. To me, that's what I'm thinking. Like, why would anyone want to prove something if there wasn't a soul resonance, if it didn't actually bring attention? I know that um, I know that this is such a solid case, and I want to see it get the attention that it deserves. And I think Stephen wants the case to be recognized because before any of this, Stephen Sakellarios had made a documentary on reincarnation. Where I come from, I care. I feel like the truth is being hidden from human beings. I feel like the religions are covering it up. I think that this is what drives me. This is there's something here. This is true. If it's true, you want it to be out there. So, and I know that's what was driving Steven. And then, he realizes, wow, I'm going to be tuned into a past life. And oh man, there's so much evidence, and it's such a fascinating story. Watch that video that I'm going to link below, and any um, other resources, because it's just amazing to see when someone tunes in what they can come up with, and no one else would come up with it. I my own intuitive read using my spidey sense is of course it's just the facts of the matter to me when I don't need to prove the fact of reincarnation. Why Stephen is so tuned in, able to find these things, able to it's just clear as day to me that this is the same soul. And when I make 6 other videos, not about Stephen Sakellarios, about the same soul, I'm going to see the same pattern. So thank you for paying attention to the preliminary, long circular rants I might have gone on because this is the beginning of a work that I'm definitely devoting the years of my life to. So, I'm gonna call it, and I hope you enjoy this video. I would love to hear comments from Patreons, and if there's anything I can gather between now and making a good, solid, uh, polished, polished video for YouTube, I'd like to come across it. So, thanks for being part of this. And if I come up with anything else, I'll make an addendum video. So, much love, and Ikuai, Shishimishi Kalua, Slananish.